Davide's getting ahead over here.
Sorry,
oh my goodness. No, there's so many layers. And then you got to take that thorn to the throne, not to Instagram, not to your best friend.
Was me feeling like I would never, ever be able to be good enough.
All right, guys. Well, this is Tim Talks, episode 1. And the reality is that I'm not going to talk the majority. I'm bringing in a guest every week.
Well, that's scary. I thought the whole thing was to hear you talk.
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, I'm definitely
really
unprepared.
Be able to hear what the guest has to say. But we have to talk about these last 2 weekends.
Yeah.
Pastor Steven. First off, the mentor that you never asked
Woo!
for, or that you didn't ask for,
yep.
and then the power of therefore.
Mm-hmm. Where do we even begin?
Disclaimer: this is not a what would you call that? You can't watch this in place.
No, of course not.
Of the sermon.
Okay? Of course not.
That would be bad. This is more of a supplement.
Exactly. This would be like watching spoilers of Squid Game and never watching Squid Game.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is spoilers suck.
Yeah, they do.
The Bachelor spoilers are the worst.
Horrible.
Squid Game.
Yep.
We're not condoning watching that.
Any of the Marvel stuff.
Oh no, for real. When a Marvel movie comes out and
it's horrible. Do you know?
You got to get off social media for that.
I hate when people are like, "Oh, I can't believe that so and so," and I was like, "Are you kidding me? I haven't seen the movie."
Why did you do that?
Someone almost ruined Shanghai. Is it Shang-Chi?
Shang-Chi.
I think Cole almost ruined it for me. I think he ruined it, but I can't remember exactly what he said.
What are we doing here?
But he definitely ruined it for me.
Okay, so Pastor's talking about this idea of the thorn. Okay, now this is really relatable because everyone has a thorn.
Yep.
Okay. This is something that is constantly bombarding your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's the thing you feel like you can't ever get over. It's maybe even the thing that you pray about the most, that you're like, God, will you please fix this?
Yeah.
Or will you please take it away? And then everything else will be great, right? So his first message, which was 2 weeks ago, since we recorded this, was the mentor that you didn't ask for. First off, did you think that he was going to be playing off the word torment and mentor?
No, I had no idea. When he did that, I was just like, there's no way. There's a reason why he is arguably, and if you're arguing, it's probably because you're just not as smart as we are, why he is arguably the best preacher.
The GOAT.
He is phenomenal. And like when he did that, it took me a second to and I love words because I try to read quite a bit and I love songwriting. And so when he did that, I had to write it down on my own. I was like, oh my gosh, it's right there. Like the mentor, the thing that's tormenting you is meant to be mentoring you. I was like,
so let's talk a little bit about mentors.
Yeah.
Did you have a mentor growing up?
I did.
Okay.
I want to say I've probably had about 2 mentors growing up.
Okay.
One of them being Harry Potter. Like, come on.
That's not where I was expecting you to go with this.
Like, no, for real. Like, I just think that it's like, I absolutely love Harry Potter and like Dumbledore and everything. But it's actually really cool. There's a lot of similarities between like a lot of the things that Harry goes through and the Bible. You should actually look it up.
Okay.
But the probably a mentor growing up was my worship pastor. Her name is Anne. I was going to say was Anne. She's still alive. She is probably like one of the people who really saw something in me and believed in me and said, hey, like if you want to do this and like I believe in you and I hope you believe in yourself too. And like I modeled a lot of like how I treat people, like the way I lead worship, a lot from what she taught me.
Yeah. Like when I think of mentor, he's right when he's like, I don't know if that's really a thing nowadays, but we'll say it. We'll say it as like, well, if I just had a mentor that would teach me blah, 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 blah. But it really is something that's not necessarily talked about or sought after now. But yeah, back in the day, that's weird that I'm saying back in the day. But when I was in youth ministry, like my youth pastor was, I would have probably classified him as a as a mentor.
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of the reasons why I got into what I'm doing now is because of what he did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And just how he helped me with questions that I had. And it really was the belief.
Exactly.
You know, we always talk about belief is the greatest gift that you can ever give anyone.
Yeah.
And I don't know if just the belief is the mentor side, but I would say nowadays, like if you could just believe it, like
100%.
we say this, or if a teenager could just be believed in, the amount of potential that they could see come into fruition in their life is completely astronomically different than if someone didn't believe in them.
And I think even for me, like I think a big part of why back in the day, why do we sound like we're like 75 years old? But for real, I think it was before like the hype of Instagram and like social media. The only way you would be able to see into the behind the scenes of what you actually want to grow up and become, or someone that you look up to, was to actually get to know the person and to ask them questions and to actually like do everyday life with them. But now with social media, you're just able to just say, oh, Justin Bieber's my mentor because I follow him on social media and I see what he posts about. Or like,
do people really say that?
I think so. Yeah, people are like, oh, like I copy everything about Justin Bieber and that's why he's my mentor. It's like, no, like there's a relationship aspect to like mentorship that is vital when you want to actually say it's your mentor.
Which we need to like bookmark that, because I wonder if we have a relationship with our thorns.
Ooh.
Right? If Pastor's talking about that, the thorns, the things that torment us can be are the mentors that we didn't ask for. Do we have that relationship with the thorns? Or is it one of those things that we're like, and I think this is what Pastor kind of alludes to when he's saying you've got to give that thorn to the Lord. There's got to be a thing where, and then he alludes even more and says, we're just giving the whole sermon away right now. But he alludes to it even more and he's like, why is it there for?
Yeah, exactly.
What's it there for?
Because
because there's got to be that relationship where this thing frustrates me, but wait, what is it also showing me?
That is so perfect, because and he talks about it. He talks about how we start to romanticize the thing that we struggle with and make it our identity.
Correct.
Like he talked about it this past week. If you checked out the sermon, if you haven't, go check it out. You know, and I think that's what we start to do. We go, okay, my struggle becomes who I am.
Yeah, this is
and
why,
I'll never change.
This is why anxiety and depression is on such a high rise, is because everyone keeps talking about it. It's not that it wasn't in existence back then. It was. It just, we didn't necessarily have a place to just keep talking about it more and more and more and romanticizing. I wonder, maybe that's why we hear about it so much, because we are trying to romanticize or give an excuse. You know, maybe I would tend to probably say that that's what I would label it as more of as an excuse. But a lot of times it isn't. Yeah, it is. People are actually going through some very traumatic things, and they don't know how to handle it, or don't know how to struggle in it in a healthy way.
Exactly, and because of that, they just decide, well, I guess this is just what life is supposed to be like. I'm just always supposed to be this way.
Yes, so this is what it's going to be. So you were talking about social media, and Pastor said that we live in a day with a lot of advice, but not much authority. Where have you seen this play out? Maybe in your life. Or maybe in how you've handled social media sometimes.
I think it's anytime you post something that might be seen as controversial. Or even something that you might... I could post anything. I could post a picture of a shoe and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I love this shoe. And someone who has no idea about what they're talking about, not even just about shoes or about fashion, or who doesn't even know who I am, will be like, oh, why do you like that shoe? It's not even a good looking shoe. You're probably just a hype beast. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, you have no idea that, like, I actually, there's some, I love the color. I love Michael Jordan. And it's just like, so many people just want to, because of what social media has been able to give them access to you access to you, think,
Yeah.
well, that means I have the authority to change your mind or to tell you that you're wrong, even though we've never ever had a conversation.
You know, something that I always talk about when, especially in regards to youth ministry, you know, we're in the youth ministry world and we pastor teenagers. You know, people will say that, well, this culture is different. This generation is different. This youth culture is different.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah. Break that down.
It's not at all. Teenagers have always wanted the same two things 20 years ago and 20 years from now.
Break it down for us.
They want access and they want authority, right? And if we're not careful, what we will do as youth pastors is we might just give them advice when they're looking for access into our lives.
That's so good.
Right?
Yeah.
Or authority to speak into building what's to come.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that's the way we've got to begin to understand, even whether you're a youth pastor or not, or you're a business leader, or you're a teenager, you're a parent. Here's the deal. One of the biggest things that when Pastor said that line, I was like, oh my gosh, I have constantly lived in a place where I've been looking for times to give my advice.
Yep.
Someone brings a problem, someone brings an idea, someone brings an issue or a situation that they're going through, and I'm like, okay, and I'm listening for how can I get my advice out to help you. And I think it's out of a good heart and out of the right heart most of the time, maybe not all the time, right? But I think when he said that, I said, man, the whole way I approach conversations have got to become different.
That's so that is brilliant. You're so right, because even for them to want to receive the advice that you want to give in the best place, like, requires a certain level of access to that person. Because what you're talking about, like access and authority, I think so many of us want to jump to authority and being able to have the authority without actually going through the step of having some sort of access to each other.
Okay.
You know, and so like it's one thing for someone who maybe has perceived authority, like on a platform, to say, hey, stop doing this. You know, like, for example, you know, if a pastor's a bad example, because I mean, his authority is his authority, you know, but it's one thing for him to look at a teenager and say, hey, I need you to stop watching pornography. Yeah. Okay. There's authority in that. Yeah. But it's another thing for someone's e-group leader to say, hey, I know that you've been struggling with this. I know that you've had this with your relationships, but this is what pornography is going to do for you. Even though they're saying the exact same thing, purely because your e-group leader, you have more access to your e-group leader and they have more access to you, they probably are more likely to listen to your advice, not just because you have the authority, but because of the access that they have with you too. Yeah. So how do you begin to operate when you feel like, because I feel like everyone's been given some sort of authority. Yep. 100%. And when I was talking earlier, I was like, I don't think I've been operating from my authority. Wow. And not in a position, right? Because there's a piece of it where it's like, okay, you've got a position, you got a title, you have a role. Yeah. There's going to be some authority that comes through that. But how do you begin to operate in an authority that God's given you? That's a great question. I think you have to be able to function with the authority in the right environment at the right level that you're living in. I think too far so it's decided by the season. Yes. So how do you know when you've walked into a season of authority? I think that's a very good question. For me, I've always looked at how much of myself is authentic to what I'm actually speaking about. Okay, so this is good. I love that you just said authentic. Keep going. Because if I'm trying to speak with an authority that I don't live out privately, then that never matches up, because it always makes me feel like I'm a fraud. Great. So there's a lot of A's in this, right? We're talking about advice, access, authority, and authenticity. Ooh, okay? That's a lot of A's. So let's break that down a little bit and maybe just help
the viewers, the 10 that are watching. Andy Stanley says, "Do for one with what you wish you could do for all." And so,
hallelujah.
This is for you. Okay, in order to gain access with someone, there's got to be a level of authenticity.
Yes, sir.
With a person.
Yes, sir.
And if there's no authenticity with that person, then what are you giving them access to?
Ooh.
Right? Then from that access, see, that's where I think if there's no authenticity, it just lands at advice.
It does. It does.
And if you mix in authenticity, that's where the authority comes in over time in the different seasons, right?
There it is, yeah.
Pastor had talked about this idea that you're asking people questions that they don't have any keys for.
Exactly.
So you're asking people to affirm you or to confirm something that maybe God's giving you that they have no ability to unlock.
They don't, because they don't even know you. You know, it's like it's one thing for me to come to you and I'm like, "Hey Tim, I want to buy this car. What do you think?" Well, you have no idea how far away I live, how much money I spend on gas, what my wife's dream car is, like, you know, how many kids I have. And so I'm coming to you and I'm like, "Look at this sexy sports car." And in your eyes, you're like, "Man, this is perfect for you." Now, when I go and speak to my wife about it, who's like, "Okay, babe, there's 6 of us in this family and there's 2 seats in this car." See, because she already understands that there's a level of access that she has that you don't have. She's like, "Okay, sports car isn't going to cut it. This car drinks, I don't know what it is. Like, we're going to spend $400 on gas a month, where currently we spend $30 on gas a month."
Yeah.
Those are the things that you don't have access to, but yet I'm coming to you for authority, because honestly, all I want from you is to just the thumbs up, to be like, "Hey, do it."
Yeah.
Because I'm not really coming to you for the right advice. I'm just asking you to just affirm what I actually want to do.
Which that's where we get in trouble a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's because we won't be authentic to ourselves, which prevents me from giving you any access.
Yep.
Right? And then the reality is no matter if you give me advice, whether it's from authority or not, I'm not even gonna apply it to my life.
Oh my gosh!
But ultimately, it comes back to you.
It does.
It comes back to you, and I think this is a great thought, because Pastor asked, "What is your thorn?" Mm-hmm. What is your thorn? And I don't think it's a thing like, "All right, hey Davide, what's your thorn?" Like, I don't need to that doesn't need to happen. If I have that access and have that moment, we have that relationship,
and it's a private conversation.
Cool, 100%. Like, let's do that.
Yeah.
But I think for me, one of the greatest things about these last 2 weekends, with the power of therefore and then the mentor you didn't ask for, was that it was very introspective.
That's it.
Like, and I think we're afraid. Oh,
that's it.
We're afraid to look inside because we're not authentic. And if I look inside, I'm going to realize how much of a fraud I really am.
That is so true. Oh, and Pastor said this is the theology of the thorn.
The theology of the thorn,
And it's because so often we want to hear things like, God's gonna help you through it. He's gonna take the thorn away, or don't worry, like he's gonna change it. And yet he was speaking, no, you'd be given the grace for it.
Yeah.
And when you hear sermons like that, like, you're so right, because most of the time I want to be like, "Oh, that was such a phenomenal message because God's going to be the one to do it."
Yes. Okay. This is really good what Davide's saying, because especially if you're a teenager, I want you to begin to understand this at 13 and 15 and 17, is that you've got to look at a sermon, or you got to look at the Word of God. You got to look at biblical context at a deeper level.
Yep.
And what does that mean? That means you got to talk it out sometimes, which is why we're like doing this. Like, even right now, I'm starting to like, oh wait, this is applying to my life even on a deeper level than I thought.
Yeah.
And it not just be, oh, well, Pastor said this. I want it to apply to my life here. Okay, if I do that, that's going to be the formula.
Exactly.
Which we all know. That's not how it works.
I wish it was that easy.
The Bible and the Word of God is something that completely unravels you. It peels back the layers if you let it. If you let it. Like, what is my thorn? What is the thing that keeps sticking me, that's frustrating me, where I find myself stuck in places, and it seems like I'm always dealing with it. And then on one side, yes, God has given me the grace for it. And then on the other side, like, grow up and get some things together, right? Like, mature, like, begin to move on, begin to begin to create your life, right? Our life is created by the decisions that we make and the choices.
It is.
Right? And how we handle those. We've got to continue to build upon it and know, yes, when I make a mistake, I don't need to, for 3 weeks, be in my bed completely depressed and just not be able to move anything forward. I need to be able to understand that God has given me the grace. To know, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this by myself.
And that's what, again, you need to go watch the sermon, because it's just, and don't just watch it once. Like,
multiple times. Right?
Multiple times, because you always find something more that you can grab from it. And that's why I say it's so important to understand, like, okay, what is the story that you're telling yourself about the thorn? Because we all have a thorn. Like, some of us have multiple.
Yes, I'm here, right here.
You know, and so
put your hands in the chat right now.
Put your hands up in the chat right there. But then it's not just that you have a thorn. It's what is it there for, and what story are you telling yourself about that thorn? Because if you're just focusing on just that very thing.
Davide's getting ahead over here.
Sorry,
oh my goodness. No, there's so many layers.
There are so many layers.
There's so many layers, and we're trying to unpack a little bit of this, and that's what we're going to be doing.
We could spend the next 3 days here.
Well, we'll just talk and like, all right, how can we go a little deeper on what Pastor said, and how does this apply to my life? And we want to hear what you guys have to say. One of the things that he said, and this is what I mean by the layers, right? He says, take the thorn to the throne. That's 2 layers right now. First off, you gotta know what the thorn is before you can take it. And then you gotta take that thorn to the throne. Not to Instagram, not to your best friend, not to your, like, not even to family. Like, sometimes, yes, I'm not saying that that's bad, but right, okay, take the thorn to the throne, and the thing that torments you will mentor you. So the thorn's gonna be there.
It's gonna be there.
So it might as well serve a purpose.
There it is.
And if the purpose is to mentor me,
it is.
The only way for that thorn to mentor me is if I take it to the throne. Take it to the Lord.
Like, there are appropriate places to process pain. I think Pastor had said that in one of his sermons. And I think the danger is sometimes we try and take the things that are hurting us to the wrong people. Because we're looking to them to give us something that they can never give us. And so that's why you're so right. You have to be able to be vulnerable in the right area to the right person. And there's levels to it. If you're only ever taking your thorn to people and never to God, it's always going to leave you stuck.
And what are you doing? You're giving access to people and not to God.
Where it's like, hey, like, step number 1 is to always go to God before you go to people. Like, that's something for me in my own personal walk and relationship with Jesus that I've always tried to implement, is like, hey, before I go and say, hey, you know what, babe, my wife Gina, who's absolutely amazing and gorgeous and beautiful, and I love you, I hope you're watching, send me some kisses. Before I even go to her, to me it's always like I struggle with it internally, but I have to seek guidance from God first, and then maybe the next step is going to my wife, or the next step is going to my youth pastor or my worship pastor or a leader. But if I skip this step, it makes this step almost like impossible and inauthentic.
And when he talks about taking the thorn to the throne, so that the thing that torments you will mentor you, what you're saying is we're making that thorn work for us.
Yes.
Right? We're making that thorn I don't know, maybe it's too far to say like a strength,
Yeah.
or you're using that to again build upon, get better from.
Yeah.
And I think people are a huge part in this.
Yep,
I don't think it's like what I would say, you know, when you're like, don't necessarily give it to people first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think people do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think oftentimes we hide it.
Of course.
I think oftentimes we think, well, I'm the only one dealing with that.
Yeah.
And this is kind of childish of me. And there's no way that I can make this happen. There's no way I can get better from this. This is embarrassing. Yeah. So I'm just going to keep it in here.
Locked in.
Okay. So wow. I took my thorn to my wife. And what I mean by that was she's like, what's your thorn? And I was like,
Rebecca just came for your throat like that. Oh my gosh.
I said, honestly, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
And she said, okay, goes, well, let me tell you.
100%. She pulled that. Yeah, she pulled it out and she's like, I think it might be your, and she did it in a loving way.
Yeah.
But she's like, I think it might be your expectation.
Wow.
And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, the expectation that you put on yourself, the expectation that you put on God,
ooh,
the expectation that you put on others.
Wow.
And the fact of the matter is that because you put a certain amount of expectation on yourself, right? What you've found yourself doing is not giving yourself grace for it. As Pastor talked about having that grace, right? God gives the grace, the enemy gives the thorn, right? You're not able to give that grace to yourself.
Wow.
So then you don't give grace to God.
Wow.
And then you don't give, not that we can give grace to God or anything, but you know what I mean? Like you're automatically, when God doesn't do it a certain way for you, you're like, see, that's what I freaking thought, you know? Or we don't give grace to other people.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I know one thorn. All right.
She read your diary. Oh my gosh. I was like,
oh my goodness. And again, that goes layers and layers deep.
Yeah.
Because I would say, well, I have high expectation of people. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Like, why would I not? And I make it a good thing. I romanticize this idea, but ultimately what I'm romanticizing is the idea of not having grace for myself.
Wow.
And it says that his grace is sufficient for you.
For you.
And if I'm honest with you, man, I was like, his grace is sufficient for me? Like, even with the things that I struggle with, even with when I am thinking all these bad thoughts, like, he even, like, the grace is there for me?
Yep.
And I had to jump, and I'm having to jump over that concept to know, oh, that's why it's been so hard for me to give grace to maybe other people.
And I love that because I'm sure we're going to jump to it later, but that's the idea of no shortage that Pastor was talking about.
Yes.
Like, maybe the thorn is there to remind you that there is no shortage.
No shortage.
Of grace. But that's so hard because no one knows us. Well, we don't think. This is what we think. We think not even God knows us the way we know us.
Yeah.
And so we sit there and we go, well, no, but God, if only you knew how many times I keep failing at this one thing. God, man, like every time I keep coming back to you, I just go back to the thorn, you know?
Yeah.
And so then we look at God and we're like, I need to hide this from you because I feel like I'm abusing your grace.
Yeah.
Because I just don't feel like I can ever live up to the expectation that you have for me. But Pastor was like, there is absolutely in no way. He said it's crazier than Chick-fil-A running out of grilled chicken that God's grace will ever run out for you. And even just that thought alone, and because we're going to struggle. Like the Bible tells us, we are going to struggle. Like life is hard. And there's going to be moments where you're going to be faced with things that you just feel like are outside of your control and that are burdens that are too heavy for you to carry. And yet there's a reminder there that even the thing that you pray away, if God doesn't change, he gives grace for you to be able to live through it. And just that alone is just such a beautiful reminder of who God is, that sometimes he's not a genie that we can just be like, hey, okay, wish number 1, I want you to change this. Wish number 2, I want $1 million here. Wish number 3, make me taller.
Yeah.
But maybe bro, you're going to be 5'2" your whole life. But can you trust that God's given you a grace, even to the specific height that you are, that's going to give you access to exactly who you're supposed to be? But some of us never want to live through it. We just want to change it immediately.
And it's about framework. Pastor said this a few years ago, that leadership is about framework.
Yeah.
Communication is about framework.
Yeah.
How are you framing something?
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think this is, how are you framing the thorn?
Ooh.
Is really kind of what he's teaching us what to do and how to do it.
Yep.
Right? Is to frame that thorn and understanding that we're thankful. He said, we're thankful for the theology of the thorn.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, we're at the end going like, I'm thankful for the thorn.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, he's so good at framing something different.
He's brilliant.
Or in a different way. Yep. And that's a lot of what like this life is, is how you frame it.
Yep.
Right? You can talk about, I heard this, Simon Sinek. Okay. Have you ever heard of him? He does a podcast, Simon Sinek.
Yes, I do.
Sinek.
Yeah.
I don't know how you say his name.
I do know him.
If you want to shout us out, we'll wear t-shirts next time. He talked about, he said they just got done with a race.
Okay.
And him and his friend, there were free bagels. And he was like, hey, let's go get a free bagel. And the guy was like, the line's too long. And he's like, yeah, but free bagel. And he goes, yeah, but the line's is too long. And he said there are two different types of people. People that see the thing that they want, and then people that see the thing that prevents them from getting what they want.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
Right? Are we the people that see the thorn, or do we see the theology in the thorn? And I think that deals a lot with framework.
You're sorry, and that's exactly what Pastor's sermon was about.
And this is why people look a lot of times look at Christians like, well, y'all are just, blowing smoke up your nose holes. Y'all are just, I don't know, no one says that, but you know what I meant.
I know exactly what you mean.
Like, right, yeah, y'all just like, oh, okay, you feel good at the end of a Sunday. It's like, no. It's like, there's a reality to what I am living in, but am I going to constantly live in that I am full of anxiety and depressed and don't want to leave my house? And that's just where we're going to end?
Talk about it.
That's just where we're going to end?
There's got to be more.
I mean, that's why suicide is at an all-time high with teenagers right now, because they isolated themselves and then got captured with their thoughts, didn't know how to frame it.
Yes, sir.
And then made a decision.
Because they thought, this is it. This is it.
This is it.
This is my life will never become better. I will never get out of this season. I'll never be able to become better. This is it.
And maybe that's what we do with our entire life as youth pastors, is just teach teenagers how to frame their life.
Oh, man.
Because if you knew how to frame it in a healthy way, they're 100%.
Yeah.
Man, I'm sad. I'm upset. I don't want to be. I failed. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
We're not excusing any of that, but we are saying that there is freedom and understanding that we're not fully in control all the time.
Exactly.
Right, and God can be.
Yeah.
And He wants to help us with all of that.
And certain thorns look in certain ways in certain seasons.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when I was before I got married, I was in love with a girl, my first girlfriend.
Yeah.
And in my mind, she was my whole life.
Yeah.
Then we broke up. And the thorn in that season was me feeling like I would never, ever be able to be good enough for anyone because I thought that I was supposed to be with this specific person. And when we just live in that place, because that's what you're talking about, is like, can we zoom out? Can it's like, bro, you're 16. But that's one girl. You know what I mean?
To even go further, is that still a thorn?
Of course.
Not the situation,
Ooh,
but
that feeling. to
try and get affirmation from.
Am I good enough? Of course, that's definitely. If you want me to be honest, that's definitely a thorn that I've probably always struggled with. It looks different in different seasons, but it's that affirmation. It's like, hey, I want to know that other people think I'm doing a good job.
Like, do you feel that when you write a song?
Oh, of course. Like, I'm like, yes, I try and get to a place where I'm like, is this a revelation to me? But at the same time, I'm like, man, do I see other people loving the song as much as I do?
Yes. Well, and, you know, I would say the same thing for me. I think there's always there's always that.
Yeah.
I think in all of us.
Yeah.
You know, someone helped me when they said, no one has pure motives.
Ooh.
Like, you think anyone has just the purest of motives? Only Jesus did, right? He wasn't trying to get someone's approval or affirmations or whatever. And it freed me because I realized it wasn't about having the most pure motive. It was about managing the motives that you currently had.
That is so good.
How do I manage that motive? Is
so good.
Leading up to something.
Yeah.
An event or a moment. It could be anything, you know, leading up to that moment. How much of your time is represented by how much you suck, or how much you're not capable, or how much you think you're going to fail, as opposed to, I got this.
Wow.
I was called to do this. I'm in the moment. I know I can do it. I'm gonna be as confident as possible. It's usually, like, probably if we took a poll, I don't know about for everyone, but for me, I'm not gonna lie, 90% is the former, where I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's human nature.
I wanna impress this person. I'm doing it for this. I'm trying to, and then the last 10%, I'm like, man, I'm called, like, this is an opportunity. This is an assignment. Like, God's got me. And I'm like, what if I switched that?
Wow.
And what would my life look like if I just then spent the 90% being like, I freaking got this. I feel good. And then be like the last 10% of like, oh my God, what are they going to think about this? What are they going to think about that?
And for me, 90% of the time, that feeling of like me trying to impress and trying to please people leaves me in a place where I don't actually have something that's purely authentic that I have to go to God.
Okay, great. Great.
Because then I'm sitting there and I'm thinking of too much. I'm like, okay, do I see this person loving this? Is this person loving this? And I'm like, I don't think I can do this, God. I don't think I can do this. Thorn, where do I take it to? Throne. And I think that's why sometimes what Pastor Steven was talking about, the thorn stays there because it leaves, it becomes a crutch that you always have to go back to God and say, God, here I am again. Because the moment that we get rid of it, I mean, Paul said that if he took the thorn away, I'd be conceited. I'd have a big head. I think I was just I think I was Drake of the music industry, walking around just be like, it's not God's plan, it's Paul's plan. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so for me, that thorn always leads me back to a place where I realize, oh my gosh, I'm trying to please too many people. God, I need you. And that's where the switch happens.
Okay, so let's end it around here.
Okay.
What before I reveal what Pastor talked about even more?
Yeah.
Are you a person that likes silence?
No.
Name the last time that it's just been silent wherever you've been. Besides sleep.
I was gonna say sleep. I was about to say
besides sleep.
Maybe a week ago, driving in the car.
Okay.
Was probably the last time.
No one in the car?
Gino was in the car with me.
Both silent?
We're both silent.
No music.
No music. And which is weird because I always listen to music.
How was that experience?
A little bit awkward. At first.
Did you notice it?
At the beginning, I did.
I asked the question because silence can sometimes be deafening.
Oof.
Because we're constantly always having something going on. here, there, music, Instagram, talking, meetings, school, our thoughts.
Oh, big time.
Right. And that is what I mean by silence can be deafening, is that then we have to confront our thoughts.
Wow.
And then we're going, oh my gosh, I don't want to be like this. Or why am I like this? Or how did I become like this? Or it's too far gone. And Pastor said, what story are you telling yourself in the silence? And there's a lot of ways you could take this of like, okay, when God is silent towards you, what are you telling yourself? And I think that's the main one that he's talking about. But I wanted to almost maybe cast a little bit of a net here to go, I wonder how we can get good at telling ourselves good stories in the midst of silence that we bring ourselves into. Yes. How can I bring myself more into a moment of silence?
Wow.
Because that's interesting. Even that phrase, a moment of silence. Why do we do that?
Because we want the moment to end.
No, like when they do moment of silences for things like 9/11 or at like baseball games and they have a moment of silence. Why do we do that?
To honor.
It's to honor. It's a moment of reverence.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Wow.
So when I heard him say, what story are you telling yourself in the silence? I thought of it of like, man, God, when God doesn't speak or whatever, when I feel like, okay, cool. But are there moments of silence, moments of honor, moments of reverence that I can create so that I can create a pattern, teach myself, develop myself into understanding how to tell myself an accurate story of who God has called me to be, what he has placed on my life, the mantle that he's given me, the weight. Have I given him a moment of silence for him to speak those things into us, as opposed to, well, let's just wait for something bad to happen and now I'll go.
Wow.
Or let's wait until something good happens and now I'll go to God. What about the moments where it's just silent?
It's just a moment.
So I think after you watch the sermons, the power of therefore, no shortage, parentheses, the power of therefore, and the mentor you didn't ask for. It's all about 2 Corinthians, Paul, and this thorn. And I'm telling you, it is so applicable for your life if you let it be. Right? Don't let this be a supplement to it. And you got to do your own workout.
You do.
But I always drink a protein shake afterwards, like a supplement afterwards.
Especially you got to bring your own sauce.
You got to bring your own sauce. So you can't come to Tim Talks anymore if you don't bring your own sauce.
Let's go.
All right, that's what we got here. We got our own sauce, our own notes right here.
Exactly.
They're all pastors, but tune in every single week on those messages. But this would be the call to action. This would be the moment. All right, what did I get out from this? Maybe create a moment of silence where you can teach yourself how to tell yourself the right story.
There we go.
About who God has called you to be.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Davide.
Thank you for having me.
You're the man.
This was fun.
I love you.
Love you too.
You're my favorite. You really are.
Bring me back then.
Oh, next week, let's go. Here on Tim Talks, episode 1. I should have brought out my voice. We love you. Peace out.